Hey everybody, this is a stream game, Mind vs. Bisu, from June the 19th. Gonna be on match point, so we're just gonna, this is from the point of view from Mind, obviously. We're gonna see how he deals with the drop heavy play on this map, and how he's able to dismantle Bisu in the late game. Game does, foreshadowing by the way, this game does go all the way to carriers, and as we all know, carriers aren't Bisu's strong suit, but still, it's a very epic game full of lots of back and forth action. Right now, Mind is one of the top Terrans, probably, I would say, like in the top 5, but he hasn't really been making a lot of splashes in live tournaments. He has a very methodical approach to the game. Very in TVP in particular, he tends to turtle a lot and just kind of outlast his opponent, whereas his TVZ is a lot more aggressive. He usually starts to drill the third base of the Zerg. So a little bit awkward because we do have the music in the background from his stream, but we'll just have to live with that for now. So far it looks like Mind is actually going to be going for a proxy rack. This is pretty common on this map just because you can, there's so many great places to proxy racks on this map, just to be annoying. Actually, it's just going to be at his natural, so it's not too crazy. But there are lots of ways that you can proxy racks on this map and put some pressure on your opponent early on. But he's just going to put it over in his natural and start to wall off so that he can deal with any sort of aggression that comes his way a little bit later on. It also makes it a lot easier to defend from Zealots. You don't have to worry about Zealots getting in your mineral line or anything because you're defending them literally all the way back at your natural. So typically we do see a standard timing only gas. It's not going to be super early. Actually, no, never mind. He's just using the gas trick to get up there to his natural. So it looks like it is actually going to be a fast expansion on him. Gasless fast expansion. Now that's a bit surprising because this sort of build has died out recently. It's been a lot less common in recent times to go for the fast expansion without gas because you need that early factory typically. But it looks like Mind is pretty comfortable with doing this. He's skipping out on a Marine for a long time, but I guess this is pretty standard. He's actually, yeah, he's gonna go for the gas before even making Marine, though very bold in his opening so far. But he needs to make a Marine soon, just in case there's a Zealot on the way. But I think he scouted it. He sees there isn't a Zealot on the way, and there's probably a Dragoon making from that gateway, so he's not too worried. Still helps to have at least 1 or 2 of those Marines to hold off any kind of aggression. So we see the gas is up now. He's gonna put his SCVs in the gas. We're gonna have to see if he goes straight for the 2 racks or if he's gonna go up to the starport. Like I always harp on this, but Matchpoint is an amazing map for drops. The main is gigantic. The natural has a lot of open spaces that make it really easy to drop in as well. So I would like to see him go straight up to that starport, but we may just see the 2 racks, defensive style that Mind is known for in this matchup. We'll have to see what he decides to go for. Let's see how many Marines he makes as well, because typically you go up to 3 max. You don't really make any more than that. If he goes for only 2, he's super greedy. But we do see a 3, so it's not going to be too crazy. Now he's going to have some Range Dragoon coming at his natural pretty soon. It's not going to be too many, maybe 2 or 3 max. There's the Dragoon now. And behind this, the Bisu is probably taking a natural, so nothing too much to worry about from the Terran player as of right now. He's going to have to pull a couple SCVs to repair this bunker. It's just annoying. This is the nature of 1 rack's effects expand. This is why this particular build has kind of died out, because you spend so much time just repairing this bunker that sometimes the economic advantage doesn't feel like it pays off, and if you're not careful with your first tank, you can actually end up in a situation where you just straight up die to the first couple of first couple of Dragoons, but that shouldn't be the case here since it's only 1-gate Dragoon and there's only 2 or 3 Dragoons that are going to be at the front. It's not going to be the scary 5 or 6 that you would get with a 2-gate Dragoon rush. You see probably the first tank that is coming out pretty soon. I wasn't really paying attention. Usually you have to go for a tank first. You can't really afford to go for spider mines when you go for this fast expansion like this. So once the tank comes out, he's going to be able to push this back, and then he's going to be able to start working on what he's going to do in the future. But yeah, basically, so by the way, the quick and easy way to remember this is you need 1 SCV for every Dragoon that's on your bunker. So, you know, if your opponent has 4 Dragoons, 4 SCVs on the bunker, easy peasy. Which is why it makes it harder when your opponent goes 2-gate Dragoon, because if your opponent goes 2-gate Dragoon, it is a little bit blind, but it forces you to end up having to pull like 6 or 7 SCVs off the line. It's really not worth it at that point. We do see this double factory build, not surprising at all. Good scan. He's going to see the robotics facility. He knows that there's nothing too crazy coming. But there is a possibility for Reaver drops. Like I always mention, the match point is very dangerous when it comes down to drop play. So you really have to be careful dealing with. You see he's already got the engineering bay on the way, so he's probably going to put up a missile turret or 2 in his main just to ward off any potential drops. And meanwhile, here come the drops. And meanwhile, he's just going to be mining up the middle of the map, so there can't be any sort of frontal push. You know what I would actually like to see is actually just pulling 1 vulture back here and just putting down like a couple of random mines in his main. But he feels pretty safe with just the missile turret ring. He's going to be okay with that. It looks like Bisu might even be gearing up for a 3rd base here. It's hard to really tell. He had that probe over there by the 3rd base, and this is what Bisu likes to do anyway. He likes to go for those Reaver drops in PvT and just keep his opponent pinned back while playing ultra greedy for that really fast 3rd. And this looks like it's going to actually try to be a break at the front with these vultures, but Bisu's micro way too good. He's going to be able to easily push that back without much problem. And I think Mind is correctly gauging that Bisu's going for this quick 3rd, so he doesn't really have to defend too much. He doesn't have to get too many tanks up. He can just go ahead and go for his own fast 3rd. So good read by Mind, just getting a good idea of what's going on and adapting accordingly. We do see the +1 upgrade for tanks already coming out. That's really nice. So he's going to be able to hit maybe a +2 timing later down on the road. Or if we do the super ultra defensive Mind style, it just means that he'll have a gigantic tank army going into late game, and he can take control of that high ground area, protecting his 3rd and 4th, and then it makes it very easy to split the map from there. So we'll have to see what's coming up here. More factories going down, so you can see Mind is gearing out for the ultra big. He sees the observer. You see the observer stop moving right over there. Gonna snipe that with the Marines. Very nicely done by Mind. Shutting down information from the Protoss is always good, and I love the placement of the supply depots, just kind of somewhat randomly scattered about. This just gives him a buffer against any sort of later zealot attacks and things like that, and protects his tanks from being overrun. So very nice play so far. It seems like he's sensing a drop. He's sending a lot of tanks back into his main, but actually the Reaver drop is at his 3rd. So he's gonna just move his tanks over a little bit. He should be in good shape. If you drop those Reavers back there, you might get a bunch of SCVs, but both of them are gonna get sniped instantly by the tanks, so not ideal. Bisu being smart and pulling back before he gets wrecked by that stuff. And we just see Mind macroing up. He's just going to be doing that. Bisu already with the Arbiters on the way, so really moving along. This is what I'm talking about. You may get a bunch of SCV kills. No, they didn't hit quite. There's that muscle chart now. There's not going to be any more drops on this area behind the mineral line. But Bisu always well known for finding ways to get into his opponent's base with these Reaver drops, so there's always a possibility, but Mind has done a really good job of properly securing his base with missile turrets in the right place and tanks in the right positions. And wow, that shuttle almost goes down there. You can see Mind is a little bit nervous. Where is Bisu's army? What is it doing? Is it not out on the middle of the map? So he's just going to scout in here, see what's going on. Nothing really in the third. Bisu has a very sparse army so far. So there is definitely a possibility for +2 timing attack. But Bisu's economy is insane. So it really is a question of if Mind could attack before the gateway explosion actually comes up. In any case, I'm not sure that we're actually going to see that +2 timing attack. I think we're going to see the Mind style where it just sits back and macros up. You can tell with how many missile turrets and how his defensive missile turret placement and everything, he's even mining up his main now. You can tell that he's prepared to play out a long macro game. He's not going to try to play into a timing push, but he does see the fleet beacon. I may have misspoken earlier. Maybe he saw that was a fleet beacon instead of the Arbiter. But now he knows there's definitely carriers on the way. So he's made a couple of Goliaths. He might actually go for this push now, because this is one of those things you have to do versus carriers. You have to push in before your opponent gets too many carriers up. That way you can limit the carrier count and keep your opponent from getting too far ahead. Bisu playing ultra greedy, going for that fast fourth on top of carriers with no army. And maybe that's because it's so easy to be rather offensive on the high ground here. But we're going to see Mind move out pretty soon, I think. Once he gets enough of these Goliaths, he's going to feel really comfortable with moving out and going out and sniping those first couple carriers. But he does need to be careful of a counterattack or this double Reaver drop. I think the double Reaver drop is probably going to be slowing him down moving across the map. You can't really, with good micro, the double Reaver drop can actually snipe units and continue to kite them back. But as you can see, he's leaving his Goliaths towards the front so he can snipe off any sort of shuttles that might be coming his way. This push is going slowly, but once he actually starts moving out, it's going to be really deadly. He's actually just going to siege up in the middle of the map. I don't know what's going on. Probably needs a couple more missile turrets in his main. He can afford it right now, so I don't see a reason not to. He's continually scanning these observers and sniping them. It's a very important and often overlooked fact in PvP. There's a lot of players don't really like to pay much attention to the observers and just kind of ignore them, but it's all about making sure that you don't that you limit the scouting information of the Protoss, because Protoss can't get a lot of scouting information outside of their observers. They have to rely very much on drops and harassment techniques to get that. We do see the Reaver drop coming into this top base over here. It's going to be a little bit difficult to clean up for Mind, but he's slowly pushing across the map. They're the first couple carriers. There's only two. He might be able to get some hull damage on these. He's probably not going to be able to pick one off. Oh, maybe he will. Wow, I think he actually did. And the siege up. This is kind of a horrible position for the Terran player. Mind actually sieging up right on the low ground is not ideal. But as it turns out, Terran mech units are pretty damn good against gateway units. But as you can see, the main thing here is a lot of those Goliaths got shaved off. So even if he is moving across the map with a lot of tanks, he really just doesn't have a lot to deal with the carriers at this moment in time. And his third base is under siege by that Reaper. So he's gonna have some trouble there. He's probably gonna have to lift that off at some point. And at this point, he's just moving with tanks and Goliaths, hoping that he can whittle away enough of the ground army to get on this high ground and start sieging up this base. This It's a very aggressive play, and he may end up losing a bunch of his tanks for it. We'll have to see, but he has managed to push back Bisu for now, and he is going to break this third. So, very well played so far. I think he managed to finally secure his third again. Picks off another carrier, that's a pretty big deal. A drop tries to come in here, but mine is too quick, he sees it coming. And this game is quickly gearing up, it's getting pretty insane. He needs to put down a couple more missile turrets in his third base, make sure he doesn't get wrecked by that later on. But he is running low on minerals now because of losing all those SCVs in his third. It's a very nice play here to cut off this third base and then go from there. But actually, he walks a bunch of tanks up into cannons. Not ideal. He's actually going to lose a ton of tanks to these. Hopefully, he can actually finally break this. There is a shuttle coming in, that's easily gets taken care of. He's going to siege up, and this fourth base is compromised now. All of these probes are going to be going down. There are more carriers coming across the map, but they're not quite in the number that Bisu really needs them to be in. He can abuse this area, this high ground area over here, and Mine is going to have to use scans in order to deal with it, but that's the GG. Mine beating Bisu pretty decisively in a TVP.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the cast, please like and subscribe down below. You can also follow me on Twitter for more updates. I do plenty of Brood War as well as Heroes of the Storm, and I look forward to seeing you guys more. Later.